Next up from Radiance is number 173 in their range Aesthetics of a Bullet, directed by Sadao Nakajima, the man who brought us the Japanese Godfather trilogy or The Rapacious Jailbreaker. And this is kind of, to boil the story down, it's what happens when you give a nobody a handgun, a sharp suit, a little bit of money, and push him into the opposition's ground, and he starts to believe that he actually is a somebody. This is a kind of release from Radiance that I get excited about because I'm not really too sure what it's going to deliver, what we're kind of getting. Are we getting a gangster Yakuza film? Is this going to be a grimy, strange, funny oddity? And it definitely sets up into that latter kind of quality.
じゃあいよいよ南九州へ進出。鉄砲玉が殺される。それを口実に一気に戦争や。
Because the story is brilliantly simple. A Yakuza gang pick a good-for-nothing nobody, an expendable, somebody that can just go into enemy territory, cause trouble and be taken out, and be the inciting incident of what's starting a gang war. They give him a flashy suit, they give him a handgun and some money, and he starts to feel super. He starts to feel like a king. He walks taller, he talks bigger, he imagines himself as a proper gangster. But that's the entirety of the plot right there. It's in the title, the aesthetic of a bullet, the look, the fantasy, the pose, the idea of power. And then there is the reality that follows that, because carrying a gun and actually pulling the trigger are two very different things. And you can see that gulf in the film as he has this power but has almost reluctance to wield it and use it.
Oi, why誰らもとね。天友会の攻撃業者と。
Nakajima's direction is really intimate in an interesting way here. This isn't big or flashy. It's not the grand Yakuza epic. This is a kind of ground level gritty version of that. It's about the little man who gets chewed up by the mythology of the gangster world and the machinery of that. It's what makes it really interesting when you watch the film, is seeing how our main character has this power, how it changes him physically, how it changes and alters his life for the better, but how he understands the weight of it at the same time. He is happy to wield a gun, but always resistant to use it, because there is a difference in his mind there. That's a line that he is trying to build himself up to crossing, and you can see it within the character. The hesitancy to really embrace this lifestyle. It's fun to play in, but is it something that he really, really wants to grow into and become? There is a quite a clear comparison here, I would say, to something like Taxi Driver. Not because the films are identical, but because they're both about isolated characters who are lonely, unstable men building a dangerous identity around resentment, fantasy, and the idea of violence. Someone who feels invisible, someone who starts mistaking violence for purpose within their life. And there's a difference between this character and Travis Bickle as well. You know, Travis is more quick to embrace the sort of violent aspects, where our character here isn't really looking for that. It's the kind of psychological terror aspect that this film is playing in, and it has this early 70s grime to it. Doesn't feel polished, it doesn't romanticize anything, it feels sweaty and shabby and lived in and a little bit grotesque. The streets don't look like glamorous criminal playgrounds. They look like places where people drift through because they just don't know what else to do in this world. And that visual texture really helps the story a hell of a lot. The violence in this film is something that I was really interested about as well, because sometimes you get these films and it goes big and brash and gung-ho about this kind of thing. but this does not treat it in a cool, simple way. The gun gives the character confidence, but it also exposes him. It doesn't make him powerful. He's vulnerable to the consequences of what will happen if he uses this power, and I really like that. There is a little bit of violence here and there, but it's not aggressive, in your face, isn't this cool, it's just quick, done, move on. It makes the film feel meaner, a little bit sadder, and much more humane.
なんで歌なんだんや九死撃ってもたらしまえねえけせやろあいつを撃ったらせっかくあいが狙われた落とし前がついてまう
This feels like an experimental film. It feels like low budget. They're struggling to kind of find places to shoot. It's hotel rooms, streets. It's kept confined a lot of the time. It doesn't have that room to real breathe. It doesn't feel like it's got a strong direction throughout it. It has a good idea of thematics, but it doesn't really flow into that narrative type of story you would expect. It's there, but it's kind of loose around it. Definitely more psychological than violent and over the top. Interesting none the least. Of course, it's Radiance. Let's dive into the disc and see what extras they've procured for us this time. Here we are in the disc for Aesthetics of a Bullet. Let's go to the special features. First up, we have Robert Schwentke. The director of Red and Flight Plan shares his passion for the films of Sadao Nakajima and provides an insightful appreciation of Aesthetics of a Bullet, filmed exclusively for Radiance in October 2025. And this runs for 29 minutes 52 seconds and is a really engaging talking head. You can understand Robert's passion for the filmmaker, and he talks about his love of Asian films before moving into Nakajima and particularly this film. But he is so engaged and so passionate that you can't help getting caught up in the conversation. Next up, we have Kazuyoshi Komakiri. The maker of such films as Kichiko and Yoko remembers his time as Sadao Nakajima's assistant director and discusses the unique qualities of Aesthetic of a Bullet, filmed exclusively for Radiance Films in October 2025, and it runs for 16 minutes 17 seconds. Again, you get a first-hand knowledge of working with Nakajima, what he was like, what he was looking for, and the aspects that he brought to his films. Finally, we have Sadao Nakajima. In this interview from 2023, Nakajima reminisces about the making of Aesthetics of a Bullet and his collaborations with its lead actor Tsunehiko Watase. This is great because you get the man himself talking through this film and his idea. It runs for 19 minutes 28 seconds, and I really love it when we've got the directors talking about their own vision. Then there's the trailer. Also included in this set is a 36-page booklet which has various essays on it. Escape Artist Dancing on a Tightrope by Ulf Moller, the review of Aesthetics of a Bullet by Haley Scanlon, and an analysis of Aesthetics of a Bullet by Rikiya Tamayama. Great reads, all of them. I particularly love the analysis of the film, the final one in this book. And that's the extras for Aesthetics of a Bullet. So there we have it. Aesthetics of a Bullet is, well, it's not my favourite of the Nakajima films from Radiance. It's interesting. I feel that the lack of budget and the lack of narrative does hinder it a little bit, but it doesn't leave it out to dry. There is some interesting things here. I like the character. I like the idea of the story. I like the idea that he doesn't embrace this violent lifestyle. He loves the idea of it, but the reality is something that really conflicts with him, and I like that idea. It's not something I think I've really seen done many times before. I would love to know your thoughts on Aesthetics of a Bullet. Let me know in the comment box below whether you loved it, hated it, or fell somewhere in the middle, and why. I love to have these discussions with you about these films. As always, there is more content up here. You can see more of my stuff in the description box, or links to Patreon, membership program, and manvfilm.com, always in which you can support me. Thanks for watching. See you next time.